The referee's a podcast with Jack and Kelly too. Scottish Championship pass, they give us the show. Footy tales from the pitch, controversies they scratch. Every moment they'll itch, no call left to bash.
Here we go again. The Referee's a Podcast. Hello, I'm Cameron Smith. As always, Jack Curry with me here. How are you?
I'm very well, Cameron boy. How's things going with yourself?
Aye, it's fantastic up here. As we sort of briefly touched on just before the podcast started, there beautiful weather this week. Today, in particular, 28 degrees or so. Sun shining. So yeah. Fantastic. It really brings a wee smile to the face and just makes everything that much easier, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Just gives you that little pep in your step. It's great. And then obviously I've again spoken just before the start there. I've taken Friday off this weekend as well. Super happy about that. No complaints until we start talking about the football that I watched this Saturday. But yeah.
Yeah, but before we go into that, you touched on the hot weather, Cam. It was such a nice day that I decided to be a very, very, very generous colleague to everybody else, and I went out and bought a box of ice creams for everybody in the office today. I only had one taker out of maybe like 8. I know, one taker out of 8. It was strawberry cornettos, which I thought was a top tier choice.
It's a decent choice, but it's not what I would have went for. I don't.
But it's a good choice for like when you go into an office and you're not sure what everybody's gonna like. It's a safe, solid option.
Well, so first off, now it probably doesn't contain any real, but I would generally stay away from that because I'm allergic to strawberries.
Are you allergic to strawberries?
I'm allergic to strawberries. Yeah. So.
Allergic to strawberries?
Yeah. At least I was when I was like 12 years old, and I've not had a strawberry since, so maybe my tolerance is sort of continued and it's fine now, but who knows. But no, I think if you're wanting to get a catch-all option, it's got to be the standard cornetto, no?
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, no, you can't argue with that either. I just like the strawberry cornetto. It's just a wee bit, just get something a wee bit more about it.
No, I get what you mean. But yeah, one taker seems to be strange.
But
also, just as a general rule, now again, I don't know if it's linked back to my strawberry, lack of being able to have it, but I'm not massive on strawberry ice cream at the best of times. It's not up there in terms of, say, top even 5 flavours that I would choose.
No, but there's so many good choices, isn't there? Before this actually turns into an ice cream podcast, and I start just thinking about all the
everyone, just want to announce here first, we'll be doing an offshoot podcast, the Referees and Ice Cream, and that will be starting some point in 2029.
Yeah, I think the people are for that.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see, comment on this video or Spotify if you think that we should do the Referees and Ice Cream. Or the Ice Cream's a podcast.
Absolutely. The Ice Cream's a podcast.
The Ice Cream's a podcast, yeah. Sorry, everyone. The Ice Cream's a podcast is what it's going to be called.
Exactly. And just as a wee PSA, listeners, there won't be, sadly, an episode next week.
No.
Because I'm going away. I'm off on my holidays now.
Yeah.
So, no episode next week. So, we'll make the most of this one, Cam. And we'll be back.
We'll still
with a bumper
probably have to
weeks.
we'll maybe do like a wee YouTube short or something like that just to blast through our predictions. Because obviously the predictions will still need to be made, and seeing as we do a video-based podcast now, we can put up, just like I say, a wee YouTube short or something, just so that it's on the record that we did actually make these predictions when we get every single one of them right that week.
Sounds good to me. Good to me. And with our conversation starting off with ice cream, and we're going to bring things back to the football. We remember why our listeners are here, Cam.
Looking forward to this segue here.
We're going to start off at Ayr United.
Is that because it's the beach? That's weak.
Yeah.
That's really weak.
Technically, we shouldn't actually even
start. We shouldn't be starting there. No, there was a Friday night game. Me and you watched it. You were sat right here next to me. You can't see it's out the shot, but there was a chair there. and you were sitting in it. Don't get me wrong, I think we were a bit distracted. We were having some fairly political conversations that we're not going to bring into the podcast. But we did manage to see the all-important goal that got St Johnstone the victory in the end there. It was a bit of a... I don't want to say it was a nothing game, because it's two good teams coming up against each other, so it was always going to be a bit of a struggle either way. But yeah, I mean, it didn't drag our attention away from the conversation that we were having at the very least.
No, it wasn't a classic, was it? I mean, it was one of those games, Friday night. It kind of almost sounds daft. You kind of think Ross County and St Johnstone aren't used to the whole Friday night setup, so to get that clash with the two of them playing so early together, at this stage of the season was always going to be an interesting one. And I think we just see Ross County struggle big time just now, whether that's hangover from relegation, but St Johnstone really went there and done what they wanted to do. They made the game scrappy. They didn't really give Ross County much, many chances throughout the game. And when it came to the all-important moment, Cam, we actually spoke about him last week, Stevie Mallon, following his wonder goal against Thistle, and then we see an absolutely superb delivery put in. And, I think anybody watching it would have went, Ross County keeper's at fault, which, ultimately you have to say he is. But the leap by Eatpeas, and the power and the header and everything about it can't really be taken away from me, because I think even if the keeper was in the goal, there's still a good chance that could have been in.
No, 100%, yeah. I mean, it did seem like it was almost a matter of time before St Johnstone managed to make the breakthrough. They did have a significant amount of chances throughout the game. Whether they were good chances or not, or whether there was particularly many shots actually, forcing anything of the goalkeeper. So, different story, but St Johnstone were in control. They had the ball for the majority. They had, the take of their shots, and they just didn't manage to, direct any of them goalward until obviously later on in the game, where they've finally managed to break through and take those all-important 3 points back home with them. Again, Ross County shown potentially their home is not as much of a fortress as some may have thought going into this season.
Yeah, no, it really isn't. Cam, you look at there, I didn't even realise it. Ross County, 38% possession at home to St Johnstone.
Yeah.
And as you said, that wasn't really because St Johnstone played, them off the park and they were unlucky to come away with a 4-0 win. We said it wasn't a classic, so for Ross County to have such a poor performance like that, and it really does seem negative from Cowie and the tactics and everything. And when you look at the players that they've got there, Cam, they for me on paper, they're as good as, if not better than that St Johnstone team,
Definitely.
Position by position, and it just seems to be Ross County, whatever it is just now, something is just really, really, really not working.
Yeah. It's whether, obviously, as we've sort of touched on in recent weeks, it's whether they've maybe made a mistake sticking with Cowie again this year, obviously based on the fact that he didn't manage to keep them up last year. Is it maybe just not the right man for the job anymore? Is that the way we're sort of gearing down towards now?
I think so. I genuinely think that's it. Because Ross County last season, that was the poorest Ross County had looked in the Premiership for me, basically since they'd got there. And for me, I think I even said it on week 1, where I kind of forgot that Cowie was even still in charge and just presumed that because they were so minced last year, they would have just got rid of him and he was gone. And the fact that he's not, it's making me feel a bit foolish now for predicting Ross County to finish first in the league. Because if this is the start, if this is the hangover, if unless they're going to get rid of Cowie and they're going to end up like Raith Rovers last season, where they sacked the manager just after the transfer window and it's a mess, then Ross County could just be really shooting themselves in the foot here.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Now, I did see, I think it was the Ross County chairman or something, who came down for an interview during the game, and he was saying, look, we've built a squad here, we've put money in, we're in this league to win it, we do want to make sure that you take maximum points and win the league and get straight back up, sort of thing. To the point where even I think the person interviewing asked even whether he thinks that the team this year is actually better than the team they had last year due to the amount of money that they've sort of put into it. And he sort of went, well, yeah, kinda. So they're in the position where their thoughts on their own team is that the team they have just now is better than the team that they had last year. But if you look at their start of the season, that's certainly not the case.
It's just crazy though, Cam, right? Because we'll talk about the defence as well, right? But when you even just focus on Ross County's attack, right?
Yeah.
And you look at the first game against Deirdre, right? They scored 2 goals, but they were both from Akil Wright.
Yep.
You know, one of the defenders. You know, they'd lost 3-1 at home against Thistle, and now they've lost 1-0 at home against St Johnstone. This is a team that's got Ronan Hale, Jay Henderson, you know, Gary Mackay-Stephen.
Yep.
They've got Nicky Clark in there. You know what I mean? They've just signed, was it James Scott on loan from St Mirren? They've got Jordan White as well. So, you know, this is a team that genuinely is not short of amazing attacking options for this level. You know, so it's absolutely amazing that they're struggling as much as what they are.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure they'll find their feet some point in the near future. Knowing my luck, it will be whenever we play them. They'll end up, you know, pumping a 6 or 7-0 or something like that. That's just the way it goes. But yeah, their start in comparison to St Johnstone's start is night and day. It's just two completely polar opposites.
Aye, completely. And St Johnstone just now look to have that nice mix of style and solidness.
Yeah.
You know, and they do look to be, you know, the early favourites. Obviously, we're only 2 games in, but if you're factoring in League Cup form as well, you know, they've continued that on. You know, so it's really, really interesting with St Johnstone. Now, we spoke about how Ross County should have, you know, probably, I think everybody agrees, got rid of Cowie at the end of last season. St Johnstone kept Valaraki, which I think everybody can agree was probably a good decision to keep him, and that's paying off. So it's interesting how both teams have came down, both have kept their manager, but there's clear arguments that one should have kept him and one should have got rid of the other one.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's always hard being in that position, isn't it? You know, what do you do? Do you stick with the guy that knows the players, knows their strengths, and you can, you know, maybe do really well now that they're down a level, or do you completely lose trust in that person? You know, they've dropped you down in the first place. Are they the right person? It's a tough one, and I suppose the answer is never clear until the decision is made. You know, so who knows what will happen there? I think they'll probably give him a few more games before they really start genuinely considering getting rid of him. A slow start's one thing, but if you're, you know, a month and a half into the season and you're still struggling just the same, then with the amount of money that's been spent, yeah, they'll certainly be. I think they'll already be half looking at people in the background, putting feelers out and stuff. But I think they'll give them a few more weeks before they start genuinely going into overdrive in terms of getting someone in, I think.
Do you think this break for County just now, with them being out the League Cup's a kind of good thing?
I never know. Probably not. I think it's not like they're on a run at the moment where, you know, they've not won a game in, you know, 10 games or something like that, and they need the break to sort of reset and go again. You know, I think they'll be at the moment still just quickly looking to the next game to try and turn it around and flip that motivation. You know, obviously their next game is still the 3rd league game of the season, so, you know, you can still get, you know, say win every game for the rest of the season and you're still going to win the league, you know. So I don't know. It's always a tough question. I suppose it depends. Maybe if they put I know Queen's Park, obviously out of the cup, we've put on a behind closed doors friendly to play on Saturday, because obviously we've not had a fantastic start either, and the manager doesn't want the break. He wants us to be playing and, you know, trying to work on the issues that we've had. So maybe Ross County will be doing something similar. If not, I'm sure they'll be putting in plenty of work somewhere to try and get 3 points on the board.
Yeah, you definitely would imagine so, Cam. And now I think is the time probably to move on.
Yes.
and get to where I was trying to earlier and talk about another 1-0 away win. You know, St Johnstone's goal came pretty late, but this one came within the first minute.
Did you see it?
I have seen it, Cam, and I'm glad I get this opportunity again. Right,
Yeah.
He's giving me fuel every week just to you know, this argument, you know, about, you know,
How is your favourite goalkeeper?
He's the worst goalkeeper, and I'm just going to say he's the worst goalkeeper in the league. And that's it. I'm saying it now. He's the worst keeper in the league. I mean, it's awful. Like, the thing that annoyed me the most about Mitchell when he was at Thistle was everybody went on at him like it was this really amazing, good, ball-playing goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And that was his big thing, was he was great with his feet, but he's not. But we've seen in the Kilmarnock testimonial, and then we've seen in this Wraith thing, and it's not because I've got any kind of personal vendetta against him, but when you've got an opinion and someone literally just keeps giving you the fuel to the fire, you can't bring it up when they've lost 1-0 at home.
Yeah.
I mean, Scott Brown we vilified last season for his goalkeeper, so it's not as if we're bringing up a different subject. He chopped and changed last season when he had good goalkeepers. Now he's got a not so good goalkeeper and he's sticking with him. I mean, help me make this out, Cam. What is going on with Scott Brown and his goalkeepers?
I don't know. I really don't. For all the money and players that Ayr United have sort of brought in the last 18 months, to not have brought in an actual good goalkeeper yet is mind-boggling, especially when they went through so many last year. Maybe they thought Mitchell was the answer. Maybe they thought that's what they were doing this time. But if that is the case, I think their scouts need a little bit of work, don't they?
Yeah, I genuinely think he was brought in as the, oh my god, we've got the best keeper in the league here. I think that was their mentality at the time.
That's crazy.
And I think it was the case of Mitchell couldn't wait to get out of Thistle.
Yeah.
And it's one of those ones where I think it's just strange. For me, I always thought Harry Stone was the best keeper that Ayr had. And I can't believe that you would drop him, and he's just not there anymore, is he?
I don't think so, no.
And you've just got Mitchell. It's just a bit bonkers, and even then we seen last season Liam Russell was in goals for them out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He's not even getting a look in now, so
I think they ended up settling on Josh Clark, didn't they, in the end? He seemed to play a bit more towards the end of the season. And obviously you've got him warming your bench now.
Well, except he started for us on Saturday.
Did he start on Saturday?
In his first game, so he was okay, but I suppose we'll go on to that later on. But Ayr United overall, Cam, obviously Dylan Easton took full advantage. He does what he does. It was a tidy wee finish over Mitchell, obviously.
Yeah.
But obviously we need to give all the credit to Wraith just now. I think I've seen something insane about Wraith Rovers' unbeaten record in the league. Stretches way back into the end of last year.
Since we beat them, I think.
Yeah, whenever that was.
That was two games after the Rangers game in January, so that would have been February or something at that point.
Something like that. I mean, I can't remember what it was online, but I remember seeing it.
That's crazy if that is that far back.
They're a bit of a sleeper team just now, Wraith Rovers, in terms of...
Wraith Rovers said it more than anybody. Players. They have a good
You've
team.
said this. They do. So I wonder when a week here...
They just fucked me last year with their manager situation.
Yeah, big time. Big time. And that's what... a win against Ayr away from home, that's massive. That's a serious statement.
Yeah. Yeah, and of all people to have a bad ball fall to when the keeper's 20 yards off his line, you don't want it to fall to Dylan Easton, do you?
No, absolutely not.
He could have hit any other player on the pitch with that wayward kick, and he just happens to pick probably the best, well, not probably, the best player on their team, potentially the best player on the park on his day. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. I don't think we really need to say too much more about that. Ayr should have came back. They had the possession. They weren't peppering the goal by any stretch, but they had plenty of chances. Just not able to do it. Begs the question, what's going on at Ayr as well?
Absolutely. Because they obviously did make it through in their League Cup group. So props to them for that. But then an opening day draw away to Arbroath. Some would say not a bad, but I think when you're Ayr United and you've spent the money they have, they would expect to win up. What a result! They're
certainly. At the start of this season, I think they're probably thinking we can win this league this year.
Absolutely.
And I think their performances in the league so far are maybe not saying that. But again, 2 games in, maybe give them the benefit of the doubt for the time being. But Scott Brown needs to work out how to do consistency, I think. And
it is going to be interesting for me, and I suppose we'll go on to it a wee bit later, but with Thistle playing here this weekend in the Cup.
Yeah.
Is Scott Brown going to look at that as well? It's the League Cup. We've done well to get this far. It's going horribly in the league. I'm going to try something different. Or is he just going to try and stick to his guns and see if this is going to work? It's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. I'm sure we'll see come Saturday. But I have a funny feeling Scott Brown's a guy to stick with his guns, So I have a funny feeling it's going to be brute force it till it works. With a few tinkerings, but I don't think we'll see anything massively different. I don't know the context of it, but when I was on Pine Bovril, I'm sure it was just on the Queen's Park section, there was talk of Celtic not wanting to send any more players on loan to Ayr until they find out what's happening with Scott Brown. So I don't know, Scott Brown, is there talk of him going or something like that?
I've not heard anything myself.
I hadn't heard anything directly, but I was just reading it on that, and without context, I was like, oh, right, okay, it's just something maybe going on.
To be fair, some of the nonsense that gets sprouted in Pine Bovril, though, it could just be anything.
I would usually agree with you, but they were actually fucking spot on with the transfers this year, so not that we would have any necessarily insight into what's happening at Ayr, more so than we would our own team, so fair enough on getting the transfers, but yeah, they were right this year, so who knows, but we'll see. Not a good start for them regardless.
No, not at all, and they're obviously sitting there in the same position as County, and two teams with a point after 2 games that would have been expecting to be right up there, so it's now going to be the case, a couple of weeks until league action, how are they going to bounce back, so it'll be certainly interesting to see, Cam.
Yeah, definitely. A team who managed to get a result though on Saturday at home, Dunfermline. A good victory, 2-0 against Airdrie. A couple of one really saucy goal, one fine well worked goal. The first goal, John Todd. I thought was it John first? Yeah, it was John first. Whoa! Did you see that goal?
I actually haven't seen the highlights of Dunfermline game.
So picks up the ball wide, plays it to a guy who just does a quick wee 1-2 as he's running by, and then he gets to the edge of the box and he does a guy one way and then he turns back on the same guy and knocks the ball absolute rocket in at the top corner. Oh, it was a beauty. I had to watch it 3 or 4 times just because I was like, nice. Whoa! He looked like a player, and then obviously I'm assuming it is Todd Brothers, isn't it?
I'm not sure because they do not also have Josh Todd as well.
So the reason I was certainly questioning as to whether they are brothers is, not to say that this can't happen, obviously, by any stretch, but John Todd was, a really tall, skinny guy with sort of, darker skin than... it's hard to put this in a way that's not bad. He's had, slightly more darker skin. And then Andrew Todd, the other one, he's a bit shorter, a bit stockier, very, very white, and he's got glasses. I'm like, you guys look like nothing alike, so are you maybe not brothers? But, two Todds in the same team, same spelling. They've got to be brothers. I maybe should have looked into it before it started. I just assumed they were the Todd brothers until I watched the highlights, and I was like, are they?
Well, as I said, I knew they had Josh Todd as well at one stage, so Dunfermline fans, you can enlighten us below. But good start for Dunfermline. That's 2 games. They've still not actually conceded a goal. When you look at the 0-0 that they got against Morton away from home, and when you actually then put that in context with a 2-0 win at home against Airdrie, it's a really solid start for Dunfermline. Yeah,
100%. Obviously, we were maybe questioning them a little bit after the 0-0. But no, to be fair, they scored 2 good goals against an Airdrie side that is just as hard to predict as Dunfermline. So, fair play. They've done the business. They got the points, and now they're sitting there with 4 points from 2 games and quite a strong position. Again, caveat being we're right early on in the season. Let's not get too carried away. But if Dunfermline continue on doing what they're doing, not conceding goals, putting in a few here and there, and they'll be sorted, sorted.
Yeah, no, definitely they will be. I mean, I think I kind of sort of said this in my prediction. I think Dunfermline will be all right this year. I think having that full, pre-season under Lennon, I think, I can see them doing all right. I don't see them going up there and challenging, whoever's first for the league. But if they have a bit of a special season, you never know, they could be knocking the playoffs come the end.
Definitely. Obviously, as we've mentioned a bunch of times, they've certainly got the fan base and the support behind them, and I'm sure they'll be wanting to put a smile on their faces come the end of the season after a good few years of not so much of the smiling. So certainly a huge game for them to take the points, and looking fairly pretty in the league.
No, definitely. And definitely, I think Dunfermline, it's just going to be time and watch this space for them, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Bringing it all together, and like you say, a full pre-season with Neil Lennon able to put down what he wants him to do, and able to bring in some of maybe the players that fit his style a wee bit more so. I mean, if anything we've seen so far is anything to go by, then yeah, they're going to be all right. But yeah, there's obviously a lot of tough games and just in general a lot of football to be played. So, all it takes is, a couple of injuries, or players playing out their skin and getting sold in January sort of thing. So, long way to go, but they'll be certainly happy with where they are at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. But moving on from Dunfermline, Cam, I was at Firhill.
Less ideal for you.
Yeah, Firhill. It's always different, I suppose, when you think of a game a few days on.
Yeah.
When you calm down and stuff. And you reflect and you go, well, we didn't get beat, but that's not the attitude to have at home against Morton. We didn't get beat. It was disappointing.
Yeah.
I really can't lie. I came away really, really disappointed with the performance overall.
Yeah.
I must admit it. From hearing how good we were in the League Cup, and obviously taking into consideration we get scalped against St Johnstone in the first game. I was expecting a big bounce back performance, and it wasn't that. It wasn't great if I'm being honest. Tony Watt was doing too much up front on his own. He was I don't want to say trying too hard, but he was literally trying to play multiple roles.
He sounds like Zach Rudden.
Yeah, but like what? But it was. It's just a strange one, He was trying to be the striker. He was trying to link up with the midfield. He was trying to drift out wide at times. And you're thinking, when you're up front on your own, Tony, you need to just be that focal point. But the thing I need to talk about is Aidan Fitzpatrick and his lack of confidence or whatever if you want to call it just now. But he was played through 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper, Cam, and looked behind him to see where the defender was before taking his shot 1-on-1 with the goalie and skewed it, way wide from my angle. And at that point, that could have put us in the lead. Morton took the lead themselves, and fair play to them. It was a good goal. At the time, when Thistle got the penalty, I must admit I would always hold my hand up and be honest. I said, it could have been a penalty, but I think
I wanted to talk about this as well. So on you go. No, you go. I'll just finish your point.
Well, all I was going to say was at the time where I seen it from being up the other end at the stadium and the stand behind the goal. What I seen is the Morton player come from behind our player and barge him like right through the back, almost with like his arm, and our player's going down, and then he gets the ball. So like what I was saying at the time was he fully gets the ball, but he's completely like barged his way through to get there. But I think in the replay and hindsight, it's not a penalty.
Yeah, did you? I think you watched the highlights. So you guys had a penalty shout in the first half. Now in those highlights, that looked way more of a penalty than the penalty he actually got. In the highlights of the penalty he actually got, you see the player come in. Now, granted, the camera angle's directly behind it, so you can't really see where the connection happens. But it looks like the defender comes in, and then the ball goes flying, and then it looks like there's the contact, and the player goes down. And you're like, well, if the ball's already on the move. And I kept on going back. I watched the actual frame of it all happening 7 or 8 times. Just like, is there contact there? What's going on? I don't think... well, there is obviously contacts, but I think the ball's already away and out of play by the time there's contact and the player goes down. I thought that was awfully light. But, like I say, there was a shout towards the end of the first half. I think just some point just after the goal before... the end of the half, where you hear a lot of shouting and screaming for it, and I thought that one was more. So I can't remember who it was. It was sort of fairly through on goal, but the defender just gets back for what looks like a last-ditch tackle, but maybe takes a chunk of the man. But yes, I do. From what I saw, I did think that you deserved a penalty, just not the penalty that you got. So all's fair in the end, you know.
It's funny that how the swings and roundabouts do really kind of happen in football. You see that so often, where if you, as you said, in your opinion, we should have got one earlier, and then we didn't deserve the one we got. Well, do you look at that as if it's balanced out? It's an interesting.
I mean, there is always that possibility that, you know, maybe the ref has seen it at half time and thought, oh, I should have given a penalty there, and then when he's seen a half opportunity in the second half to correct that, he's went, penalty, yes. But obviously without verbalising that and saying it, because you can't do that, you've missed the decision, that's that. But, you know, maybe he has seen it and thought, I was maybe too harsh there. I'll think about it more next time, and then he's just went, yeah, it's a penalty.
You never know. I mean, you never know. One thing I would say from the game as well, Cam, and it's no disrespect to Morton, because, you know, they came away from Firhill with a point. I thought they were as dreadful as us on the day. You know, I don't think it was a good game of football. I don't think it was too good. It wasn't two good teams going at each other. It was two very poor teams on the day. You know, it's a difficult one judging Morton. You know, I always, because they do work hard, you know, and they do try.
Of course, yeah.
Like, you just look at the lack of quality sometimes, and it's brutal. You know, so, but that's how they finish 5th, 6th, 7th in the league every season, because they've got that skill. Yeah, it's consistency. So, point for them at Firhill is a great result for Morton, but bitterly disappointing for Thistle. And as we kind of spoke about earlier, you know, new goalie in with Josh Clark, you know, I think the general consensus from Thistle fans this season is we've had a lot of good goalies over the years, you know, and we've been almost spoiled, you know, over the years with all the good goalies we've had, and I don't think either of these two are ever going to really be in the conversation.
Nah.
But it's a difficult one when you've maybe got two goalies that you would say are a 6 or a 7, rather than having that one standout number one.
Yeah.
You know, and I hope we don't fall into what Ayr were last season, and well, Clark's going to get a run of games, and Budanakis will get 4, and
then you're going to sign Mitchell back in January, and he's going to play some.
God, don't even, man. You know, like, but so it's a difficult one with the goalie situation for us. I would rather see us at some point settle on an actual number one. I mean, you can say it's only been one game for Clark. We did see him play at Ayr last season as well. Yeah. And I think over the piece I would prefer Budanakis. So it's interesting, Cam. It's interesting.
See how that develops. Am I right in saying that you've actually signed Budanakis and you just have Clark on loan?
Yeah, pretty certain of that. And we've made another signing through the week of Alex Samuel, another striker. Who's came in at Ross County last season.
Yeah.
So we've signed him, I think, in a 1-year deal.
Fair enough. We'll have to wait and see how he goes. You know, never an issue getting a wee bit more, firepower going forward. Certainly an interesting one to see how that goes. Unfortunately, we've got to move on to the last game. Was there on Saturday. It was pretty appalling. We messaged at half time. You were obviously losing at that point, and we were still 0-0. You're like, not crap. And I agreed with you, not very good. And then we just went out and threw the game away. 3 mistakes, 3 goals. First one, now I don't usually go back and watch the highlights if I lose, but I had to go back and watch the highlights to actually fully understand how each goal happened. Because we were sitting at the far end of the stand from where all the action was happening, so it's maybe hard to see some of the bits. But the first one was just a fuck up, but actually watching the highlights, it was actually worse than I thought it was in real life. So free kick on the edge of the box. I don't think they show you the foul in the highlights, but I remember at the time us all thinking that it wasn't a foul. But ref's given the foul, fair play. Ferry sets up his wall. And he's standing there, and I hear someone behind me saying, "That far corner's looking mighty inviting." And then the guy fucking just puts it in that far corner, and that's it. Not like a great free kick, you know. It wasn't high top corner; it was the bottom corner, and it wasn't until I watched it in the highlights that I realised that the gap that I could see from where I was, it wasn't even that big. Ferry was actually on that side of the goal, but you see, just as the guy's about to take the free kick, Ferry takes just a wee half step to the right, and then has to dive back left again, gets a hand to it, but he's obviously already gone the wrong way. There's no power in the hand, and it's just in. And you're like, Ferry, you were there, you were standing there, you moved away, and we've conceded. And then we kick off, the ball comes back towards our defence. Charlie Fox, I don't know what he's doing, but he's got two Arbroath players closing in on him. He must not get a shout because he has no clue that they're there. One pips in, touches the ball, the next guy goes past, ball into the box, free header, goal. 1 minute and game over through two
crazy stuff.
Two complete, fully avoidable mistakes. And then the third one looked to be, it's hard to say, because the ball's coming in and it does get a wee touch on the way through. It is given to the Arbroath player, but in the highlight it looks more so like Matty Shields gets the wee touch on it, but it doesn't really change the trajectory of the ball all that much, and I still think Callum Ferry should have been able to stop it, but it just almost like phases through him, it goes through his arms that are moving towards the goal. So yeah, not good. And then Josh Fowler, our last 8 minutes of the game or something, we actually played some football, we looked good, and Josh Fowler scores a beauty of a goal, an absolute beauty. He was the only player the entire game who looked really good, a lot of running, doing a lot of work, and then obviously doing it off with a goal at the end. But I think I was maybe more perplexed about one selection issue in particular. He started Henry Fieldson at left wing.
Yeah.
I thought we were playing a back five because he had Shields and Fieldson on the park, and I thought Shields was going to be playing a left-sided centre back, and Fieldson would be out on the wing back. But no, they were set up as left back, and sort of, I think it was left midfield, but a winger. And I like Henry Fieldson. He's got a lot about him. He's a really good player. But you did see a couple of occasions where he ended up with the ball sort of moving through towards goal, and he maybe didn't really know what to do, So
I mean, it's not that natural attacking instinct.
Well, definitely not. I mean, we signed him as a centre back, never mind a left winger, So I think it was strange for him to start in that position. We looked better in the second half when T-Mam Scott came in the right wing. He looked really good, replacing Aidan Connolly. Aidan Connolly again also didn't look like he was doing very much. A lot of running, a lot of moving, but not a lot of doing anything. He has been a bit of a disappointment so far. Early days.
What do you put the result down to though? Because you look at Queen's Park and it was a really, really good draw away to Wraith Rovers for yourselves in the first game of the season. And then you followed that up with a heavy defeat. You've got to say at home against Arbroath when I certainly fancied you to get a win. What do you put that down to?
I put it down to 3 mistakes. That's it. You don't. If Queen's Park don't make those 3 mistakes, that's a 1-0 victory. Because Arbroath didn't. They didn't score a good goal. They didn't score from open play. They didn't have a guy just pick up the ball, get past 3 players and score a worldie. It wasn't like they were unavoidable goals. It was. We switched off 3 times and that was it. Game over. It was just naive, absolutely. And especially after you concede the first goal, what you've got to do is you've got to stay solid and make sure you don't go further down. So to concede again within a minute, that was it. As soon as that goal went in, we all knew that was game over. We weren't coming back from that sort of thing, and it obviously ended up being true. But yeah, I don't know, because you look at the team and the players that came in and you think there's something there, but yeah, there's something still not quite right.
Nah, something not quite right
on the pitch, and obviously we've got off the pitch issues now as well, don't we?
Yeah, you do. I mean, I don't know how much you want to talk about that just now, but
there's not at the moment. There's not really much to talk about other than club president Graham Shields has stepped down from his role with immediate effect. He's also given up his seat on the committee. at the moment. I think club representatives and the committee are working together to run the club, but there's a lot of talk around it being the fact that there's something coming. What the something is, that's open for debate, and we won't get dragged too much into it at the moment until there's maybe a little bit more information. But we've got to imagine there's something coming that the fans, who already were not a fan of Shields, they're not going to like it. And I think he's jumped ship before his name gets attached to it. So even though we know that his name's attached to it anyway, and he's ended up leaving the club citing abuse online and in person to him and other committee members. But don't get me wrong, he has received abuse, but what the issue is there's no communication between the club, and what they interpreted as abuse was actually criticism at how they were doing their job and not communicating with the fans, and sort of treating the fans with a bit of contempt. Really, it's almost like he didn't care about the fans or really the club. It's just a weird way. It's like instead of talking about building a stand, there was them talking about building a barrier so people couldn't see it from the hill. And then at another point, when we talked about building another stand, he said, well, there's no point in building another stand, because if we build a stand, no one will come. And you're like, well, that's just such a defeatist attitude. Build the stand and give it a chance. You're cutting your nose off to spite your face. And it's good for the club that he's gone, in terms of the fact that he's not going to be making any more decisions that clearly haven't worked so far. But there's obviously that element of unknown and potential incoming doom. So it's take it how you want at the moment. But yeah, there's something in the offing at Queen's Park, and it's not going to be good. We obviously sort of chatted about it off podcast and throw the theories around. Like I say, we're not going to jump to any theories. We're not going to throw theories.
There's no point in that. But there's no point in throwing theories.
We didn't come up with anything that was good.
No, it's not. It doesn't look good. But I mean, we'll get on to that when it comes. And I think the only point with Queen's Park, and you said there, the stand, is if you are going to survive long term, you just need to grow the fan base. There's no getting away from that. So the only way to do that is to have it accessible for people to come, and to have that, you just need to have more space. So it's
funny how
obvious.
That's amazing. How did you work that out? That's like top level thinking. We had we paid millions and millions of pounds to get not that answer. How did you do that?
I don't know, Cam, I must come from a different planet with
That's mental. I'm going to let the club know. I'm going to tell them this information that you just told me. Sorry, say that. So if we build a stand, that gives more opportunities for fans to get into the game.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Believe it or not. And you could and in the meantime, you can increase your revenue by getting away fans in.
What?
I mean, it's
more revenue? Yeah. Wow. I had no idea that having more space for more fans would mean that there's more potential revenue coming into the club. That's astounding.
Maybe we should take this information into them first thing in the morning.
Yeah, you know what? We'll just send them a link to this podcast when it goes out at 5 p.m. tomorrow, and say, "Here, watch this." I won't say the minute yet, because obviously I like this, so you don't know how long we've been going for, but so I won't tell you how long we've been going yet.
No, I don't.
But yeah, so I mean that wraps up the championship for this week.
Well, what I think we should do though, right? Let's do predictions now, because it's League Cup to round it off. So I think do predictions now.
Okay.
Stick to the league stuff, and we'll end on the League Cup.
Okay, so we really didn't do very well.
Oh God.
We really did quite poorly.
Damn.
Like really poorly. So starting off, Ross County against St Johnstone. It was 1-0 St Johnstone. I took 2-1 St Johnstone. So I got 2 points there. You went 1 each, so no points. I will say that's my only 2 points for this week.
Oh really? Damn. That's not great.
Yeah. So Ayr against Wraith, we both took Ayr to win. Doesn't matter what we chose, because they didn't. You were right earlier on. You did take 2-0. You bastard. 2-0 Dunfermline. I went 1 each.
Happy days.
We both took Thistle to win again, out, and we both took Queen's Park to win. And
we really weren't good this week then, were we? That didn't
Yeah.
firmly correct, scraping me out of a barrel there.
Yeah. So you've taken the lead. You're now on 9
Right.
points, and I am on 7 points. But that is out of a maximum of 50 points. I have
God.
7 and you have 9.
Oh, that isn't. I don't even have 20% in the available score.
We talked a big game about we're going to be so much better this year, and we're so much
Are we
worse.
worse?
Oh, we're way worse. Let's see, what was the first 2 weeks? So after week 2 last year, I had 11 points and you had 13 points.
Oh, yeah, we're way worse.
So we've both got like way
4
less.
points left. We've both got 4 points left.
So yeah, and obviously last year wasn't good. So this
No,
is
exactly.
bad.
That's not as if it,
Yeah.
that wasn't us setting a blistering standard.
Yeah, it's
last
like
year.
we did really good last time, so that's why we've not done so good this time.
Oh man. Oh well. Anyway, listeners, maybe we are welcome in the early break from the predictions.
Yeah.
You know, get our thoughts collected, and as Cam said already, keep a wee eye out because we'll drop a wee YouTube short
Yeah.
at some point next week, and you can catch up on that and let us know. So if you listen to this still on Spotify and you're really keen to hear what the predictions are for the next league week, check onto YouTube for a week. Give us a subscribe.
Yep.
Give us a wee share. Help us grow that side of the game as well. And we're really appreciated for that, Cam. But there's only 2 games to talk about here.
There
I
is,
had it in my
yeah.
head that there was a lot more than that. But
I think it's maybe just because
yeah.
last year there was like 6 or so teams that managed to get through, whereas obviously not that many got through this year, did they?
No, it didn't seem that way. It didn't seem that way at all. But well, we'll just rattle through them,
Yeah.
you know, because what else can you do? But Morton at home against Aberdeen, interesting one. This Aberdeen team do not look good. You know, I don't know if you've seen any of them so far. I watched their
If
game.
not,
I watched their game a week last Monday against Hearts, because it was on the telly
Mhm.
and Hearts blew them
I was about to say
away.
they pumped them, didn't they?
It was, God, that's terrible. I think it was 2-0, but it was like 2-0 going on 3-4 kind of thing. Aberdeen did miss a bit of a glaring chance, but I mean, on the whole, they were rotten. And then I only watched Sports Scene on Sunday night, so I just seen the highlights of their game against Celtic. But put it this way, there weren't many chances for Aberdeen in the highlights package. So it's a really poor Aberdeen team just now. I would still expect them to beat Morton, you know, at Capello, but
Of course.
a really interesting one, potential banana skin there for the Dons.
Just a wee 1-0 Aberdeen victory or something like that, you know?
That is exactly what I think, you know, because as I said, it's not a great Morton team just now,
Yeah.
but Dougie will have them up for it.
100%, 100%. And you know, Aberdeen have prior to losing in the cup to lower league opposition way back when I was a boy. We played Aberdeen at your ground actually in a cup replay after a 0-0 game up in Aberdeen. Brought them back. I still remember the newspaper the next day. Killer Queens dumped dismal Dons.
Nice, I like that.
So-
And I mean, because what I thought you were going to say was Darvel, you know?
Oh, well, Darvel, yeah.
When you,
Yeah,
so when you said all that,
well, exactly.
when you said all that
That's
famous
that's
defeat, I thought, oh yeah, Darvel, yeah, 2003.
that's what I was
something.
sort of moving on to. Is they've had high-profile exits from the cup quite often. You know, Aberdeen are not shy to losing to a lower league opposition in the cup.
I mean, obviously they are Scottish Cup holders, so we do need
That
to give
is
them
true,
that.
and they did beat us in
They are
2
Scottish
cups
Cup
last
holders.
year, but they were both away. If we'd brought them to lesser, different story. But no, it's hard to look past a Premier League team playing against a Championship team in general. But when, again, I always feel like I'm taking it out of Martin, but when the Championship team's Martin, you definitely expect Aberdeen to be doing it. And it's just because
Yeah.
Martin is like the no-froze team, you know, it's just, you know what you're getting, and it's going to be a grindy match. But I don't know that will work against players that are quite a lot better. So I will see. I don't expect anything much from it, other than Aberdeen probably taking those, making their way through at the next round at Martin's expense there. But yeah, they'll give it a good go.
It's hardly worth talking about, right?
Yeah.
I do get this, right? But I would have loved to have seen Morton Aberdeen on the telly. I thought that I think that should be these are the games that should be on the telly.
I disagree.
A lower league team at home against Aberdeen, right? The fact that we've put yet again, Celtic Falkirk and Rangers Aberdeen, right? Rangers Alloa, sorry. The two cup games is just boring, right? It's just dull,
So
right?
I
It's just
agree with
uninteresting.
that.
But I was going to go into a segue point there, right?
Okay.
I do understand though why they're picked,
Yeah.
right? And they're going to draw in the biggest audiences, though, right? What has pissed me off through the week, and this isn't championship related, I'm just pigging it on the back of this link that I'm making here, right? Is, did you see the Scottish Challenge Cup? It's got the new format this year.
I don't think so. No.
And so it's kind of going into a new. Anyway, it's got a whole new format. We'll talk about that at maybe a different week. But it's got the new format, and a couple of games have been picked for TV.
Okay.
Right?
Oh god.
And the two games, Premier Sports, and it's like Dumbarton against Rangers B.
Yeah.
And then the other game to be picked for the telly is whoever it is. Apologies, I can't remember what Celtic, right? And it's just so obnoxious.
Yeah.
That like there'll be good games on, you know, and I still stand true. It's like Morton Aberdeen would be so much more interesting than watching a pretty pissed Rangers side beat Alloa 4-0.
I think,
you know,
especially, you know, more so with the SPFL Trust Trophy and that, it's like just make more games available. You know, like you don't need to have it up on, you know, Premier Sports 1 and 2, but they've obviously got the Premier Sports online, don't they? And well, did they have all the games available on that actually? Because if they do, then
no, they don't.
I felt like they did last time, did they not? Because I watched the Queen's Park game on it.
Maybe they did, but they watched maybe in the League Cup, but not with the Challenge Cup.
Yeah, no, not with the Challenge Cup, but for these games that this is coming up this weekend, you'd imagine that a good chunk of them are got to be in that Premier Sports online player, right?
I'm not.
Oh well, no, they can't be because they're Saturday 3 p.m s. But there was a Saturday 3 p.m. Oh, I don't know, but yeah, no, you're right. You're getting more entertaining games outside of that, but they know that putting Celtic and Rangers on is going to get them guaranteed X amount of people watching, whereas Morton against Aberdeen, it could be easily, you know, 10% of the amount of people would watch that in comparison to Celtic or Rangers. I don't agree with them putting any Rangers or Celtic B games on TV. That's just obnoxious, but again, they'll still probably pull in more viewing than Morton Aberdeen. You know, it's weird, you know. The Old Firm do ruin it for the rest of us a little bit, you know, especially because they're so unwilling to change. You know, they're like super rich teams in comparison, and they're unwilling to share the, you know, a proper equal share of all this money. You know, it's like, well, we need to have the most money because we're the biggest. And it's like, well, actually, you should probably get the least money because you're the biggest. Let's even it out a wee bit. Let's make it a bit more competitive, and you know. But that's not really for us to determine. You know, we deal with the championship. Speaking of, we've got an old championship tie. You're involved.
We do.
Talk us through it.
I'm excited, Cam. I'm excited. Last 16 League Cup. When the draw happened, I thought brilliant. You know, Thistle making it to be one of the seeded teams and drawing Ayr United at home. You really couldn't ask for much more than that.
Yeah.
So absolutely delighted with the draw. As what I would caveat that with, Ayr United would have been as delighted with that draw as we were.
Yeah.
You know, because they could have been going to a Parkhead or an Ibrox or whatever it would be. So yeah, absolute fair play. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting game. Two teams, you know, both sitting with a point on the board after two games, not where they want to be. You know, but two teams that have had a good enough League Cup group stage to make it this far. So it's not all doom and gloom, you know, either. It's not like it's two Ross counties coming into it, you know, because there has teams. Going to be a return to David Mitchell for Hillcam. I'm certainly looking forward to that. Bannigan potentially returning as well to Firhill. I noticed he was on the bench for Ayr at the weekend but never quite got on, so whether his fitness will let him play. And then obviously Paddy Redden playing against his old side for Thistle as well. So there's all these storylines in there, but the real thing is, Cam, you know, for both of us, you're 2 games away from Hampden, you know, when you're thinking that you go into a quarter final. You know, if if St John, really, God, we're talking about 2 games with St Johnstone in our league now, Cam. You've got Motherwell. And if you think St Johnstone beat Motherwell, or anything can happen, like a Livy beat Hibs. If I was Thistle and I had St Johnstone or Livy at home, no disrespect, or even Morton beating Aberdeen, or any of these teams, you go, we could win at home, and before you know it, it's the same for Ayr, they could win. You know what? You're in a Hampden semi-final. So
a lot of ifs there,
it's
though.
an interesting one. There are a lot of ifs, but it's the thing is it's the potential what the League Cup offers to the Championship teams if you get through. It's tantalising.
Aye. No, 100%. It's always that wee thing to reach and grab for. But it's just obviously by the time we get to the next round, there's definitely going to be one Championship team that's not there anymore. You've got to imagine that at least Morton will be put out as well. So you're obviously looking at only St Johnstone being a non-Premiership team in the next round sort of thing. And obviously, yes, you could get St Johnstone and you could draw them at home. First off, that's still a tough game. Secondly, it's the chances of you getting the one team that you want and the home location. The chances are just so astronomical.
Yeah,
we've just got to take it one step at a time first, though, don't we? We've got the game this weekend, deal with that, and then see what comes next. And obviously, like you mentioned, St Johnstone play as well. They play against Motherwell in St Johnstone. Now, based on what St Johnstone have been doing so far this year, no reason to say that they won't take the victory off of Motherwell there and make it through to the next round. I don't really know how Motherwell's season has started, but just basing it off of what St Johnstone have been doing, they're a threat.
Yeah, well, I know with Motherwell they got that impressive draw against Rangers, didn't they?
Of course they did. Of course they did.
In the opening game, and then I can't remember how they got on in their second league game of the season because playing away from home, 0-0 against St Mirren. So 2 draws from Motherwell off the bat. So a fairly solid start from them.
2 good draws at that,
Yeah, going to be a really interesting tie at McDermott Park with St Johnstone and the confidence that they are. I think if it was a poor St Johnstone team, you'd expect Motherwell to go up there, but it's not. It's looking like it's a good one. So there's certainly going to be a tie in our hands, So obviously we're not doing predictions, but just in a word, tell me who you think is going to go through in each of the 3 games involving our sides.
Aberdeen, St Johnstone, and I think it will go to penalties in your game. And then it's obviously a flip of the coin. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt being the home team, but I think it will go to penalties.
I mean, I think I could agree with all of that. Yeah. I mean, whether the penalties will happen or not, but I think Aberdeen, St Johnstone, Motherwell's a flip of a coin for me, and I think Fisher-Lair could go either way too. So, yeah, absolutely. I think if Motherwell win, fair play to them. They've stepped up the Premiership team. There's a lot of quality in that Motherwell team, but they've just sold Lennon Miller for what, $4.5 million.
Yes.
So they're without their best player, and he's obviously not been there in the last couple of weeks either. So there might still be a lot of change to come for this Motherwell team. If they've got that money in.
They'll be spending some money. They'll be bringing in some players, but that's not going to have happened by the time the game happens on Saturday. So yeah, like you say, they're going to be going in without Lennon Miller. Obviously, their captain, heartbeat of the team. So yeah, nothing to say that St Johnstone, with the form that they've been in, unbeaten so far in everything, that there's no, they can't take that motivation and momentum into that game and maybe we get a couple of goals against Motherwell. So certainly interesting. But yeah, I'll be keeping tuned on Saturday. Obviously, Queen's Park aren't playing, so I'm gonna try and do something away from football. But obviously you've always got your phone on you, so the scores come through. So I'll be keeping an eye and seeing what's going on and what's happening. Absolutely,
sounds good, Cam. And am I right in saying this has come to an end of another podcast?
That is it. Another podcast down, season 2, episode 5.
Episode 5? I thought it was 4. God, we're flying through them.
It's 5. Yeah, it's episode 5. So thank you everyone for watching along again. It's a joy to get back to the podcast now, especially with doing 5 episodes into the new season. It's back into the flow of things. So stay tuned. Next week, like we mentioned, not going to be a podcast. Maximum will be a YouTube short. Minimum will be a post on the Twitter with what the predictions are. But we'll see you in some form next week, and then we'll be back as normal the following week, I think.
Yeah, indeed we will, Cam, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. If you're going to the games, best of luck. If not, we'll catch you next week for the league action. Have a good one, guys.
That's it. See you later.